Welcome to this episode of Crap No One Tells You. With me today is Dawn from SMB Franchise Advisors. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you, Gummy.
And she's going to talk to us about some of the crap no one tells you about becoming a franchisor.
That
Correct?
is right. Yeah.
So we don't waste any time on this podcast. What is some crap no one tells you about becoming a franchisor?
Well, the crap part of becoming a franchisor is it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think you know that. We've gone through the process. And, you know, it's really starting another business. So typically a franchisor is best found from a successful business, one that has worked out its kinks, kind of has success, makes money, has happy, clients that rave about the brand. Some kind of brand recognition in the market that is already served, whether there's one operating location or 25, that, people know about the brand, where it exists now. But outside of those markets, the brand has absolutely no recognition. And so it's going to be hard to get the word out.
Right. So is franchising, becoming a franchisor at its core is really, I've built this brand, I've built this business, I am recognizable in my local area.
Right.
Do I think this exact concept, can I take it and replicate it elsewhere?
Right.
Right? Because you don't have to be famous in Ohio to launch a business there. But if it follows the same principles as your first one did,
Right.
you're maximizing the chances of success for the brand in that region, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And maximizing success means you're going to work really hard to make that happen. So when we talk to potential franchisors, there are a lot of things that we want them to be aware of. One is that it is hard work and that they are going to have to kind of step away from maybe what they love doing and work with people who don't know what they do, are not good at it, maybe don't have any experience specifically in the industry, and probably have never owned a business before. And so if you love marketing and you decide you want to franchise a marketing business, you may be working with franchisors on coaching them on how to open up their business, how to get an EIN number. And those are simple things to do.
Right.
And
It's like the basics.
can help them,
Yeah.
right, the basics. But then it's how do they start to talk to potential clients?
Right.
And so now instead of actually delivering services that you loved doing, you're going to be supporting people on how they're going to be delivering those services or making the product or,
creating somewhat a copy of what it is that
Right.
you do or did, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw an interesting video yesterday that just kind of reminds me of this, is they were talking to an employer, right? And the employer goes, yeah, it drives me nuts. I hire these people in, I keep them a year on the job and they're still not getting it. And the interviewer goes, okay, so how long have you been doing this? And they're like 24 years. And I'm like, so you expect someone to get your experience in 1 year that took you 24 years to get, and you think that's fair?
Right.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Right?
That
But-
could be the same perspective of the franchisor. You can't
Correct.
be upset with franchisees who have never done this before and don't get it and maybe are taking a little bit longer to adopt.
So the goal should really be like cut down the learning curve as much as you can to get them to that 3-year level or 5-year level faster.
Right. Yeah. The goal would be if it took you 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to build your business successfully to the level that you expect franchisees to be at, you want them to be able to get there in 1, 2, or 3 years,
Got it.
kind of correspondingly.
So you're cutting it basically in half.
For sure.
Close to that.
Yeah, or even less.
Less,
right. And hopefully you have learned that there were things that didn't work
Yes.
and you improved and you fixed things and you adopted new services or new products or you developed a new item or whatever it is that you do in your industry in order to help them get there to where you are now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it was, is it the E-Myth that talks about build your business as if you were going to franchise it?
I
think
haven't
that's
read the book.
No, I
No,
think
so
I think it's the
sounds
E-Myth
right.
that it, yeah. But it was funny because I hear people toss that out all the time. And I'm like, yeah, it's brilliant advice. I'm like, do you know what it means?
Right.
And they're like,
Yeah, no.
no.
There's about
Does it mean-
4,000 brands in franchising pretty much consistently, right? There's ins and outs. There are brands that just fall by the wayside because they expire out of the industry or the market, or they get acquired. There's a lot of acquisitions going on in the industry right now. And so then those brands will be engulfed basically or folded into another brand. So yeah, not every business should be franchised. There are definitely some that could be that aren't, because people are just not interested in it, or they don't think that they have the capacity to franchise it, or they don't know that people would be willing to follow them,
Right.
to go into that industry.
And it's interesting because if you go to, not that I'm plugging a franchise thing, but like Franchise Gator, which lists I don't know.
Hundreds of brands.
Right. If you go in there and you just look, right, people are often amazed that you can buy a franchise for under $10K. You can buy a franchise for under $20K. Can you buy the $3 million McDonald's? Yes, but I was surprised at how many franchises really aren't that expensive to get into when I first started looking at this.
Oh, for sure. There are a lot of businesses that are under $100,000 total investment. So when you say they buy in for $10,000, are you talking about the franchise fee?
Right. So
Or are you
franchise
talking about the
fee, right.
total
So like
investment?
McDonald's is like $2 million or whatever
Sure.
it is with the full build out and everything. I think the franchise fee is only like $100K, whatever it is. But
Right.
yeah, there are at-home franchises for $9K, and you're making revenue in 6 months if you follow the program,
Or less.
or less,
Or
yeah.
less, hopefully less,
Right.
for a home-based business. Hopefully the ramp-up time is
like a couple of months,
is 6 weeks to 3 months.
right?
Yeah, hopefully.
But these are all things that are like statistics. You
yeah.
can look all of this up, right?
You can.
So
You
even
can.
if you're buying a franchise, if you're not on the franchisor end, if you're
Right.
looking at buying it, there's resources for that as
There
well.
are a lot of resources. The International Franchise Association, franchise.org, is the professional organization that helps the industry. They have a tremendous amount of resources on their platform. I just completed my certified franchise executive, so that's a process that normally can take anywhere from 6 months, in my case, to 3 years. But I have 25 years of experience in franchising, so I kind of pushed really hard to finish it this year. And I learned something. I will definitely say that I learned something. The resources that were part of that curriculum are not available to the general public, but a lot of materials are out there. And there's more sites and podcasts and blogs and storytelling on, Entrepreneur Magazine has a whole section on franchising. And
then there are franchise brokers that'll help you vet
sure.
there's
Yes.
all this stuff out there.
yeah.
So a little bit more about what you do specifically, because it's a fascinating industry.
Yeah.
So what exactly
do I do, or does
Yes.
SMB do?
Well, let's do both. So
Okay.
what does SMB do? Because I don't think, once again, it's one of those people don't know people like you exist, right?
Yeah.
Or businesses like that exist.
Exactly. Yeah. So SMB Franchise Advisors was founded in 2009, tail end of 2009. We are the second oldest, the second largest franchise consulting group. We have anywhere from 12 to 15 people on our team, depending. We bring people in as we need them. And we definitely leverage a lot of supplier resources. But our goal is to launch, educate, and support franchisors into the industry.
So if someone has a business and they're like, oh, maybe I could franchise this, you guys can take over from there, look at it and go,
Right.
You can go through the evaluation process. Is it franchisable? Is it not? Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea?
Correct.
And then where does it go from there?
Yeah, so if we decide that we think it's franchisable, then we bring them on for a project that lasts anywhere from 8 to 12 months. We will help them find a franchise attorney. We are not attorneys. We don't do the legal work. There is that entity out there called the Federal Trade Commission that oversees, that's kind of part of the crap no one tells you about. There is no such thing as franchise jail, but you can get into trouble if you don't follow the FTC guidelines. They have their requirement is you have to have a franchise disclosure document, and unless the industry changes, the FTC rule hopefully will stay in place. That's something that's coming up for review right now by the federal government, and we like it. We like the way it is right now.
Okay.
Every franchisor in the country has to follow that FTC rule, which is 23 items of information that a franchisee can then review to be able to evaluate whether or not this franchise is right for them. There's a contract that goes in there. So there's a lot that's involved for both the franchisor and the franchisee that has to be done. So that's one component of what we do. We have a team that works with their attorney. We help evaluate the market and say, okay, if you are a personal trainer and you're going to go into the fitness industry, there are lots of other brands. There could be 100 other brands, but we'll choose brands to look at that are successful in franchising. And we'll say, okay, what do they charge for fees? So we do a competitive analysis. We look at their initial franchise fee, their ongoing royalty that the franchisee will pay based on their revenues. And then we look at other things that people might consider.
Okay.
Would they do yoga instead of personal training? Would they do maybe a stretch concept or physical therapy?
Right.
Depends on really what the franchisee's mindset is of what they like to do and what they think they might be successful doing. So we want to give the franchisor kind of awareness of who out there their ideal franchise candidate might consider instead of them.
Got it.
So that they're aware of it. Just like if you are opening a new business, you want to kind of drive the market and find out, hey, I'm opening a taco shop. Are there 8 other taco shops in the area? And not just Taco Bell, but, the independent little places
And is there a market for 8 taco shops?
And is there a market for 8 taco shops? Like in my town, there's probably 17 hairdressers and we live in a very tiny town.
Right.
I don't know that the market exists, but that is what it is.
So that's really just the initial research phase of, okay,
right.
Do you have something here?
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And then I jokingly say, which isn't jokingly, then the work starts. Right?
Yeah.
Now you have all these things that need to fall into place. You have
Right.
all these things that you need to do.
Yeah.
And that's really where the vast majority of the work comes in, right?
Yes. So once you have your FDD done, now you have to tell people about it. So you have to create a website that is different from your website that you already have for your customers, your clients, because the information's different. And the way the internet works, the way Google works, the way indexing works, you have to make sure that you are speaking to the candidate. So there's web development. Then what do you do when you get an inquiry? Whether they go online and fill out the form, or they answer a chat bot or a real chat person, a live chat, they call you. They schedule a Calendly or whatever system you use to schedule your calendar. And you have to go through the process. You're basically interviewing somebody, not as an employee, but as a business owner. Are they going to work well with you? Do you think that they're going to be successful? Do they have enough money? Please make sure you, as a franchisor, that you evaluate their financial capacity.
Right.
I have been on phone calls with franchisees who cannot make payroll, cannot pay their mortgage, cannot pay their loan, and they are not sure which one they should do next, what they should pay next. And so I was not the salesperson who brought them in.
Right.
They were brought into the system before I came on. Those are really hard conversations. So these people are trusting you as the franchisor as much as you are trusting them, right? It's a mutually beneficial relationship. If they can't be successful, you're going to struggle as the franchisor. So that's kind of crappy. It really is.
So when I buy a franchise and I look at a franchisor, what are the things that they should have in place before I even sign with them?
Excellent question. They should have a successful business themselves.
Okay.
They should have the capacity to support you. So you can ask them about how they're going to train you. How long does training take? Where does it take place? What's included in training? Can I take a look at your operations manual? You don't have to, as a franchisor, you don't have to share with them the franchise operations manual.
What's an operations manual, just to interject?
Operations manual is another part of our deliverables,
Okay.
which takes a long time, but it's basically documenting how you run the business from start to finish. How do you set it up from the beginning? How do you open the business? Like to just open the doors for the very, very first time. And then how do you do what you do every day? So if you're a taco shop, how do you make the tacos? How do you prep every day? How do you train your staff?
What spices go in the meats?
What spices go in the meats? How do you make the guacamole? Should you, make it fresh at the table?
It's really the full documentation here's how the business is run.
It's the roadmap to how do you run the business.
Okay.
Yeah. And how do you market it? And
Right.
how do you support it? And then what are the obligations? This is also in the operations manual. What are the obligations of both the franchisee and to some extent the franchisor to support the whole business itself, that independent operation that's happening in one market?
So that's why even if you ask a franchisor, can I take a look at your operations manual before signing, they'll probably say no.
They shouldn't say no, but in the FDD, if they have a copy of their table of contents, as a franchisee, you should be able to see, oh, these are all the topics they're covering.
Got it.
They're covering how do I find new clients? What is the sales process, right? Is there a sales funnel? Whatever those things are. And then there should be information on marketing. What kind of local marketing do they recommend for this business? Is it digital? Are they talking a lot about yellow pages? Seriously, I just reviewed an operations manual for a client that we're reviewing and then revising, and it's 2022, the very end of 2022 right now. They still have yellow pages listed in their operations manual, which I once argued with a franchisee that she was spending too much money, but 15 years ago she was in a market that had dial-up, and she was in an older community.
Yes.
For her,
Made sense.
it made sense.
Yes.
That was in 2007.
Right.
Now I think that market has high-speed internet.
They probably
Pretty
have
sure.
at least a cell phone.
Yeah. So should you be on yellowpages.com? Maybe. I mean, as many backlinks you can get to your website.
We can. That's
we
a
could talk
whole
about
other
that.
conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. So yeah, all of that's in there.
So a lot of that stuff, like if you are a franchise buyer, right? Like I know we talked about becoming a franchisor, but this is stuff you have to be aware of on both ends.
Absolutely.
Is if you see something like that as a potential franchise buyer, you should probably be asking questions.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing if you see you should be using and they mention outdated software. If they're talking about things that really no longer exist, like how long has it been since anybody updated this stuff?
Right. Yeah, that's a fair question. And so, we had a whole conversation yesterday about millennials and franchising and marketing to millennials who might be joining the franchising industry. And there are a lot of new things that brands that are older have adopted proactively, knowing that, and they are actively looking at the industry. They are saying, who am I marketing to as an owner? How am I going to better serve them?
Yep.
How are they going to be happy in this business? Because if franchisees are not happy, then they're probably not going to work at the business to make it as successful as it could be.
Yep.
And they might not be making money, which maybe is related to why they're not happy. But a lot of times it's because they don't actually enjoy what they're doing, and they looked at a franchise as an opportunity for them to do something they enjoy. Maybe they worked in a job that they did because that's what they went to college for, and their parents told them, get a job, get a good job, get a good education, get a good job.
Right.
Get
a 401k, a pension plan.
Yeah. And now they're saying, hey, I'm miserable. I'm commuting an hour and a half every day, which wasn't the case, but now traffic is back, and they don't want to be away from home. They don't want to be away from their kids or their parents, depending on where they are, or both, right? They could be in that generation where there are definitely people who are still raising their children and supporting their parents as they're aging.
Yep. So just one of the things we revisited over the last year, because we looked at that and go, okay, in-person training.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we're having someone come to our location for a week. And I asked the question, do we need to? And it was funny because we all kind of looked at each other and said, well, define need.
Yeah.
Right? Is it better to develop the personal relationship to be able to sit down with someone in front of them and have a conversation and answer questions? Yes. do I need to do that for here's how you put an entry into QuickBooks?
No.
Right? So we started looking at it and going, we actually ended up investing in software where we can set up training modules
Right.
that have a test at the end, that have we can track who took what, did they view the entire thing, all of those.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it and going, okay, for some of these more like mundane type tasks, can we cut that out of our in-person sessions?
Right.
And have them like come here for 2 days or 3 days instead of 5.
Right.
And then say, okay, when you go home, you cannot start until you've done these 2 training modules online.
Right.
And now we can verify that they've done them.
Yes.
Right. But that's something that seems so insignificant.
Oh, it's very significant.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's huge for someone. Let's say it's it's a stay-at-home mom that's getting back into the workplace and wanted to do a franchise on the side, like
Right.
because you can buy franchises that are not full-time gigs.
that are not 9 to 5.
Right.
They don't have to be 9 to 5.
Well, the ability to do 2 days worth of training at their pace when they want to
Right.
is far more important than necessarily getting that training in person and spending that because they have to house themselves while they're doing
They
their
have to
training,
pay for their
right?
meals. They have to pay for their transportation, their
Correct.
hotel. Maybe they still have a job that they can't be at. They haven't, they've
Mm-hmm.
given notice that they are leaving and they're starting a new business. So they're not, kind of cheating that side of it. But they do have to give up whatever income they're doing in order to dedicate the time to training. I think that the technology and the ability to do virtual training has greatly improved over the last several years, not just during the last 2 years, where everybody became virtual because we had to. But I think that the ability to train in advance of coming in person is also really critical. And I think that, there's a lot of misunderstanding of the training that is required. Training with a franchisee starts the day they sign their franchise agreement.
Right.
And the coaching and the mentoring and the how do you do what you do starts on day 1 or maybe on day 5. But it has to start right away. And so what you were talking about, QuickBooks and accounting, that doesn't necessarily have to happen in person. Absolutely. And in a service-based business, a 1-week training period, if we go back to that conversation of the person who owned their business for 24 years and they want everybody to be up to speed in 1, think about now your business and how long you've done it, and you expect a franchisee to learn everything in 1 week.
Correct.
It's not possible. Even if they've read the manual from cover to cover and they really read it and they understood it.
Yes.
Maybe they went back and reread parts that they didn't quite understand. And then they come into training, whether it's virtual or in person, and they ask questions. That shows that they are willing to learn and they're trying to advance that learning curve so that they can get as much out of your head as the franchisor, the team on the franchisor side, to be able to understand how to run the business. But yeah, if you can reduce that in-person time, that's perfect. Okay. But I wouldn't eliminate the training time at all.
Right.
And I wouldn't put it only on a virtual platform. I would make sure, because sometimes what happens is you get into those virtual platforms and the videos are a little too long and you can accurately guess at the answers in order to pass the test, let's say.
Right.
So I think it's worth having a conversation
Okay.
and making sure that there's feedback. Did you really get it? Can you explain it to me in your own words? And that way you're kind of evaluating the franchisee.
So as a franchisor, these are all elements. Like you're not only creating like an employee training manual, you're creating an employee training manual plus.
Right.
Like
And you're really training the franchisee.
See,
you're not training their
right.
employees. So you have to make sure the franchisee knows how to train their employees.
So how long is the process normally? If someone wakes up this morning and go, yeah, I think it'll be a good idea to franchise my business. How long is the process? I understand that if you have a restaurant with, 90 items on the menu, it's going to be far more than if all you do is sell tax prep, right? But how long is the process for someone from the time they decide to explore becoming a franchisor to the time they can actually start selling a franchise?
Well, it varies, right?
Yes.
Because they might do research on companies like SMB Franchise Advisors. There are some other people out there. Buyer beware. No, we really do like what we're doing, and we really do care about our clients because we want them to be successful.
Yep.
And so if you do your research, that might take a month. It might take 3 months. You want to talk to people, find out if they're going to be a good fit. And then starting the process, our term with our clients lasts anywhere from 8 to 12 months. And that is mostly because of budgeting and not just money, but time.
Right.
The franchisor is running a business.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that we're not taking too much of their time. But we have had people who have done it in, 4 months, and they came prepared to have everything ready. You have to have all of your financial information, all of your tax returns, all of your key metrics. What is good about your business? How well do you do at certain things? Because you want to be able to share that proactively with franchisees so they can understand, okay, if I invest $100,000, what can I expect to make? In year 1, year 2, year 3, and that isn't necessarily something the franchisor can tell. They can give them the data, but they can't guarantee that will come true. So we definitely work through that process. So typically it's around 10 months, and then after that, it depends on how quickly you started promoting. So once your FDD is done, the franchise disclosure document, you can start actively promoting the opportunity, even while your operations manual is still being developed.
Okay.
Because right now in the industry, it's taking at least 3 to 6 months for a franchisee to go through their evaluation. Okay. So just like you asked, what if the franchisor wakes up today and says, I want to do this? The franchisee has the same process.
Right.
They're going to do research. They're going to look up the brands. They're going to do some self-searching. They're going to talk to maybe some brokers. They're going to talk to an advisor or a coach, which is another, 2 other wonderful names for brokers,
Yes.
who are going to educate them. Well, what do you like to do? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be in a restaurant? Do you want to work Monday through Friday and have your weekends off?
And a lot of people don't realize when you sign on with a franchisor, that has a multi-year commitment attached to it.
Yes.
So it's not like getting a job and then Tuesday going, do you know what? I really don't like this job.
Yeah,
right? There's all kinds of commitments that contract is two-sided.
It is two-sided, but the good thing about it is you could sell your franchise. So if you decided a year in, 2 years in,
you can't always though. Most of the time you can, but there are franchisors that won't allow transfers, correct?
I would hope that the franchisor you chose and the brand you chose would allow you to transfer.
Okay.
Most of them do.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever read an FDD. They will evaluate
who
you're selling to.
Correct. So whoever you're buying or whoever would be buying your franchise still has to go through the exact, you can't just call them and say, hey, I'm going to sell my business to my Uncle Joe tomorrow. Right. And no. Uncle Joe has to go through the same process you did to get
Unless
vetted.
Uncle Joe was part of your ownership team and had a pretty significant percentage ownership, then that would be an easier transfer. Okay. And when the business transfers, the franchisee, whether it's the buying franchisee or the exiting franchisee, has to pay a fee to the franchisor.
Right, because it's a vetting process.
It's a vetting process. There's contracts that have to be done. There's additional training. So there has to be some transfer of money.
So it's not like quitting a job.
It isn't like quitting a job. And
it's
if
like
you didn't work
business.
it and you weren't making money, then you really don't have anything to sell.
Right.
So that's the sad, crappy part of it.
Same thing with any business.
Right, exactly.
Right?
But if you have done well and you have brought in, higher than average revenues, especially higher than the other independent businesses that are out in the market that aren't part of a franchise brand,
right,
then in today's kind of environment, you could sell that business for 3 times cash flow, 5 times cash flow, maybe more if the volume is high enough.
Right.
10 times cash flow, which is pretty significant.
That is.
And so then if you've worked it and done well, that's your opportunity to exit. So that's a nice kind of component of being a franchisee.
Right.
And it looks good for the franchisor too.
Correct. To
You know.
get that better than average franchisee in.
And to be able to say, hey, look, we have a franchisee that really made a success of this. And then they turned around and they sold it
Yeah. That's huge.
for more. And the bigger the franchise brand grows, that impacts that multiple
So
too.
if I'm looking at my business right now, and this is kind of just to wrap it up. If I have a business right now and I'm looking at going, okay, I think I might want to franchise my business. What would be some key indicators that it might be A, a good idea, or B, a bad idea?
The good idea would be that you are making money,
Okay.
that you have happy customers, good reviews. You have control of all of your domains, handles, social, everything. Ideally, you should have a federal trademark,
Okay.
not just registered in your state where you operate, but
federal,
federal.
yep.
So that can take 6 to 12 months. So if you are considering it, maybe in the future,
it
go
now.
and file it now.
Right.
You know, even if you never do anything with it, even if you never franchise. And you really feel comfortable that you could back out of doing the day-to-day. And that you are not so unique in what you do every day that there's nobody out there who could do it.
Got it. So if you have 40 years of experience in fixing something very, very specific and you cannot replicate it, like
Right.
you have to do it because of a diagnostic process or whatever, it's probably not going to be very franchisable.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you are, a highly trained culinary chef, and
Right.
you're the only one who can do this
You have
tremendous thing.
Right.
And it will take years of training to get somebody else to be able to replicate you.
It's probably not a good idea to franchise
Yeah.
it.
But we have, James Beard award-winning chefs who have successfully franchised their business because they focused on the ingredients
Core components.
more so than
Yes.
the process.
It's not like some of these Michelin star restaurants that make sugar balloons, right? That you can actually
Sure.
eat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very unique. Like
Very unique. Not everybody can follow
years of talent.
Good
Okay.
food, happy customers, repeat business.
And you should not franchise if basically that.
Yeah, if it can't be duplicated,
Okay.
if you have bad reviews, if you're struggling to make money, franchising is not going to help you make more money.
Got it.
It's going to cost you money and probably take away from your core business and take your eye off the ball. So,
So your core business needs to be strong before you even look at becoming
absolutely.
a franchisor.
Yeah.
So a big no-no is if you're struggling, franchising is not going to save anything.
Not right now.
It's just going to dig a deeper hole.
Yeah. Focus on your core business, get it to a solid, position financially. Make sure that you have people who can follow you and you can train them.
Okay.
You'll have a better chance.
Sounds so simple.
It's so simple.
Well, thank you for coming in. And thank you, everyone, for listening.